You know those corporate guarantees, the ones that sound almost too good to be true? Well, today we're diving into a story about exactly that. A huge ride-hailing app made a bold promise, couldn't keep it, and ended up facing some pretty serious consequences.
So the company we're talking about is Rapido. I'm sure a lot of you have used them for a quick bike or auto ride. Their story, though, took a really interesting turn. It all started with an ad campaign they launched, built around this one simple but super powerful claim. And that simple claim, it led to this: a whopping 10 lakh rupee penalty from a government watchdog. I mean, this wasn't just some small fine, you know? It was a huge statement about what companies can and can't promise their customers.
So how in the world does a catchy ad campaign go so wrong that it ends up with a massive penalty and an order to give out a ton of refunds? That's the big question, right? And that's exactly what we're going to unpack here.
All right, so to really get how things got this serious, let's start by looking at the actual decision and, who made it.
Okay, so the main player you need to know about is the CCPA, the Central Consumer Protection Authority. The easiest way to think of them is like the head referee for consumer rights in India. They're the ones who make sure companies are actually keeping the promises they make to all of us.
So, here are the facts, laid out plain and simple. Rapido got fined 10 lakh rupees. The body that fined them? The CCPA. And the reason? Well, officially, it was for misleading ads and something the law calls unfair trade practices.
Okay, so what was this promise? What was the ad that got them into so much trouble? Let's take a look at the campaign that kicked this whole thing off. And there it is. The ad was built on this really compelling two-part offer. Part 1, the promise. Get an auto in 5 minutes. Super simple. Part 2, the guarantee, or get 50 rupees back. I mean, it sounds like a total win-win for the customer, doesn't it?
And you really have to get the scale of this. This wasn't some little promotion in one city. No, this ad campaign ran for 548 days. That's basically a year and a half. And it was running in over 120 cities. So we're talking millions and millions of people saw this promise.
Now, you'd think with a promise that big and bold, the customer experience would have to be amazing. But that's not what happened. Instead, this wave of public backlash started to build up, and it got big enough that it caught the attention of the consumer watchdog.
And this number right here is so important. 575. That's how many formal complaints were filed against Rapido on the National Consumer Helpline. We're not talking about a couple of angry posts on social media. These were official, registered grievances.
And if you look at the timeline, it tells a really clear story. This wasn't just a bad month or a temporary glitch. The complaints were coming in consistently month after month for over a year. That points to a bigger, ongoing problem that just wasn't being addressed.
What's really interesting is that the complaints weren't even just about the 5-minute promise. People were reporting a whole bunch of other issues. Things like poor service in general, being overcharged, and even the company straight up not giving refunds or providing the services they paid for. So, okay. The CCPA has looked at hundreds of complaints, they've analyzed the ad itself, and then they delivered their final verdict. And trust me, it sent a really clear message.
Just listen to this quote from the CCPA's order. It is pretty powerful. They didn't just say, hey, your ad was misleading. No, they specifically called out Rapido's apathetic attitude towards its own customers. They pointed out that the company basically made no real effort to solve any of those 575 complaints.
So the final order had 3 main parts. 1, stop running that ad, effective immediately. 2, pay the 10 lakh rupee fine. And 3, and this one is a really big deal, go back and give that 50 rupee compensation to every single customer who was eligible for it. Wow.
Okay, so this is about one company, right? But what does this all mean for you and me? Well, it turns out there are some really important takeaways here for all of us as consumers.
So here's what you need to remember from all this. First, those big guarantees companies make, they're not just fancy words for an ad. They have to be honored. Second, these watchdog groups like the CCPA can start an investigation all on their own. They don't need to wait for a lawsuit. But maybe the most important thing is this: your complaints really do matter. When you file them on official channels, it can lead to real action. And finally, this whole thing proves that misleading advertising can end up costing companies a whole lot of money.
And that really brings us to the final question, doesn't it? Yeah, this story was about Rapido and their 5-minute promise. But it kind of makes you think, how many other corporate guarantees out there are actually guaranteed? It's something to think about the next time you see one of those ads.